All right. G'day, mate. What's your name?
James.
Nice to meet you, James.
James Rochford, how are you?
And what do you do, James?
What do I do these days, Barney? I've got a lot of hobbies.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Crowdworkcast. My name's Andrew Barnett. Thanks so much for joining me. Really fun, special episode today. I finally sat down with my old mate, the Professor James Rochford, to chat all about how he got into comedy, how he got into TV, producing and on air and all that good stuff. And we cover a bit of how we met and how we ended up working together. This was a really fun chat. I feel like we barely scratched the surface on it. There's plenty of more we probably could say and will say in the future. So I do feel like I could have him back again because he's got a million great stories, and I think we should definitely do that. So this is a great episode. Before we hook into it though, do need to do some shameless plugging for my own stuff. My Sydney Comedy Festival show is coming up. I'll be at the Wild Oats Wine Bar on the 26th and 27th of April. If you want to come along to that, please do get tickets at sydneycomedyfestival.com.au, or you can go to my Instagram, Andrew Barnett Comedy, and there's a link in my bio to those tickets. I would absolutely love to see you at that. Now, if you do want to hear more of the Professor after listening to this, he has two amazing podcasts that are out and about at the moment. The first is a rugby union podcast called Kickoffs and Kick-Ons, which he does with some ex-Wallabies players. And let me tell you, they are candid about the state of Australian rugby. At times, they're in a position where, they're really just happy to share their thoughts, and very insightful and funny podcast as well, as is everything sort of James does. And he also has a great cricket podcast, which he does with Michael Vaughan and Adam Gilchrist. That's called Club Prairie Fire. And you can follow the Professor on Instagram. He is at Prof J Roch. Give him a follow. Plenty of great content going up there. If you're not following me already, please do follow me on Instagram, Facebook, wherever. I'm at Andrew Barnett Comedy. If you're not already subscribed to the show, like, subscribe, all that sort of good stuff. If you're watching these on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. I'm making a big effort to put more and more content up there. Other than that, that's probably enough faffing. Let's get into this. This is my episode with Professor James Rochford.
So, you started out though. So let's go back to how you and I met.
Yeah.
Through mutual friend, Raimondo Badrani.
Yeah. Who once pissed on my feet in a shower, if you remember.
Oh, I'll tell that story. So that was when we were Ray was working with us at Fox, and he was in his yoga phase.
Is he still in that phase?
I think he is. I think he's still, probably not as hardcore as at the time.
Jeez, he was hardcore. He was pushing it hard.
He was daily. So he hooked us up with it. He took us down, said, boys, sitting's the new smoking. That was his...
That's right.
That was his thing at the time, which now I see that online all the time. Scientists say sitting's the new smoking.
Was he vaping while he was saying that?
Probably.
I think he was, yeah.
But he... So we went down to do hot yoga.
That's right.
Down at Neutral Bay.
The Bikram.
And post yoga, we went in. There was 2 showers, and you and Ray jumped in first, so I was just waiting. And take the story away from there, mate.
Well, so then Ray obviously pisses in the shower pretty hard, and it was fluoro yellow. I don't know if he'd been having Barocca or something like that before, but it came down through the shower, and it was all over my feet, and I went, "Fuck me, Ray."
And
sorry. Sorry, Jimbo. Sorry, Jimbo.
That was one of those ones where, because as soon as I heard you start to get right, and then I could smell. I knew exactly what happened, because I don't know if people have done Bikram before, but you sweat it out.
Yeah.
So the post Bikram yoga.
Is that why you think it was so yellow?
Yeah, I reckon he was just a bit dehydrated.
Yeah.
That's Good times. I hadn't thought about that in a while.
I never forget it. Every time I'm in the shower, I think of the time Ray pissed on my feet.
But got rid of your athlete's foot.
Yeah, that's right. Burnt off all my everything else as well. My plantar warts.
Yeah.
Got rid of everything. Yeah.
Your feet look great now.
Yeah. So how did we meet? Is
Yes,
that where we
so
are?
we met through him. You were working already at Fox Sports.
I
You've
was.
been working there a while. So you were like, I want to start off first. I want to talk about how you got into TV, but also, so you knew Ray through stand-up.
For stand-up, yes. I did stand-up for many years. Not very well, to be honest. I wasn't great. Yeah. But Ray was great.
Yeah.
And we used to tour a bit. Myself, Ray, and Jack Barrett.
Yep.
And who else was there around then? Matt O'Con was around there.
So what year are you, like, when did you start, you reckon?
I started when I was 22. So I'm 42 now. So 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
And then, was I still doing it when we first met? I reckon I stopped when I went to Fox because I was doing a lot of weekend work. So that was 10 years ago. So maybe I did stand up for 10 years. I tell people 15
Yeah,
because it
nice.
sounds better.
Well, we did live stuff. You've done live stuff since.
Yes, yeah.
And I've attempted to get you back into stand up a couple of times.
Yeah, a couple of goes at it. And I went back and read all my old material, which was about me backpacking through Europe. And it doesn't really apply when you're a father of 2 kids. So it didn't, my routing stories in in backpackers doesn't really have the same punch. So they were failed attempts. Let's be pretty honest. They were pretty shit.
So were you at uni at the time when you started? Like, what got you into stand up?
And I'm sure you were the same. 21sts, there was always that, who's the bloke that's going to do the speech?
Oh, yeah.
And I did a couple, went okay, and then I did Hilbo's speech. You know Matt Hill, that we both work with, and I just crushed at Hilbo's speech. I remember one joke I did, and it was to do with, because he did sports science at university, and my whole thing was that, he can now be a canoeing instructor. And people were like, that's fantastic. That's great. You're just belittling what this man's done for the last 3 years. A number of people here are his sports science friends from university. You've just slayed them. And so from that, I went and did raw comedy.
Yep.
I did that a couple of times. The first year I sucked. And then the second year, I think I scraped through maybe to the second round. Maybe got through to the third. Here's me exaggerating again.
Yeah.
Definitely didn't. And then just, started doing stand-up. I loved it. A lot of fun, wasn't it?
Yeah. It still is. Like, I cannot recommend, like, I'd still say you should get back into it.
No,
'Cause it's,
you're at a different stage because your kids are grown up and don't like you anymore, whereas mine's still very young,
want to know where you are.
That's right, and they sap the life out of you, in a wonderful way. And so now when it gets to, because stand-up is 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, and by the time you're there, I go to bed at 8:30, exaggerating again, closer to 8:45. But you know what I mean, you're ruined by the end of the day, whereas you can get out there still and...
Yeah, I'm in that lucky position now. I wake up most days when my kids come in to tell me they're leaving to go to school.
Oh, mate.
So...
5 a.m. this morning, both kids.
Really?
Yeah, my wife's away. She went away for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, nice. Good for her.
Yeah.
She deserves it.
She did. That was my present to her.
Yeah,
you don't have to be around me. And so, so that's the difference. 5 a.m.
5 a.m.
And then if I'm trying to punch out a few, witty remarks at 9 p.m. about, what's the deal with being a young dad, it's just not going to happen, is it?
Yeah. I started when, like, I had one kid.
yeah.
So I started with young kids. But the difference was, like I always said, people used to always ask me, how are you, how are you basically allowed to do it? And I'm like, look, I'm a grown-up. I can do whatever the hell I want, right? Because I played tough publicly, but, you know the truth. But I used to say, because my wife would start work early, so she'd be up early. And so she'd go to bed early. So, like I always said, after about 8 o'clock, no one gave a shit if I was home or not.
Did they know you were going out and doing stand-up?
Some nights. It was an early gig.
Yeah.
But that was the thing. And then I'd be up early with the kids, but then I was mad for an afternoon nap. Like when they'd nap, I'd nap. Like that was my, like, it's when I remember years ago I was in the when I was a kid, I was in the Army Cadets for a bit, and one of the
That explains a lot. That's why you're a psycho.
yeah, one of the guys that ran it though, who was like an army guy, like had been in the regular army, he used to say to us, he goes, like, you know, when we were out in the bush, he goes, and we'd stop and you'd be standing there. And his thing was like, right, there's one rule. This is the rule in the army: sit when you don't have to stand, lie when you don't have to sit, and sleep when you don't have to be awake.
Whoa.
And I was like,
That's cool.
that's a great way to simplify your life.
And it's very Ray Badger, isn't it?
It is.
You know. But he's the reverse.
Yeah.
He's stand when you can sit.
Well, he can probably
Be awake when you can sleep. Yeah.
He probably got to the stage with his yoga. He could probably sleep standing up at this point.
Does he? What does he do now? I saw some video and he's looking fit, right? Is he?
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while because he's been based out of London for a while. So
Yeah, right.
it's,
He doesn't call us when he comes back anymore. He's got new friends. Oh well.
do what you can. Do what he knows. We don't have any work to offer him anymore.
No, God no.
Like we
Because
used
they're hobbies. Lots of hobbies.
So you grew up in Northern Beaches,
I did.
and then uni. So your older brother
Yes.
is a doctor.
Yes.
Went into medicine. Did you always want it? Because what did you study at uni?
I studied media and communications.
So was it always you wanted to get into TV or?
Do you mean when I was younger before
Yeah.
I changed my university preferences 5 times. Back then you'd do it on the phone, do you remember? You'd punch it in. And I was swinging between a science and a media degree because I was sick for animals back then.
Really?
And I wanted to be a vet.
No? Oh man, imagine that if
Yeah. I
would've
wish
been-
I'd done it.
that would have been a great reality show, just having you and your brother. Like it's that
Yeah. I know.
you could have had the like
blew
shared rooms.
Yeah, I blew it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the industry I've got myself in is dog shit. So, but like that's and people that do media and communications that'll watch this will know that when you walk out, you don't have a skill. Like you don't have a trade, not a trade, but you know what I mean? My wife, and she walked out, she was a doctor, right?
Yeah,
I walk out, what am I?
It's not a vocational degree in the sense that you're sort of qualified to do a thing.
Yeah.
Which you sort of are, but then once you work in the industry, you realise sometimes you're qualified. Some people working in are qualified to do it without being in, like having done.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
That's
There's
right. Well, in our industry, your best bet is to have a famous or rich father. And so if you can find a way to do
mother.
not in Australia. No, rich father is what I've learned, which is a sad sign of the times of our industry.
Times are changing. Hopefully,
hope so.
rich mothers can.
So whatever you can do is, and if you can find a way to so maybe when you're in your teenage years, you help your dad at his work. And maybe if you can find a way to get your dad to be famous, then that's it. That's how you make it in our industry.
Yeah, it is interesting, like the way into that. Like I did an episode with a comedian just recently, and she was saying that similar thing. She went to CSU, did the sort of media communications. She works in television production, but did the same thing of like being there working with people, and then being like some of them went through uni and did it, and then others it's just like, oh, I knew this person and. You know, they got me this job, and it's weird with. That's what I always think now. Like with my kids, like getting towards like the point where they're going to start thinking about whether they want to do uni or not. Is I think my recommendation to them will be like, if you want to do a uni course, that's great, but do something that's a vocational course rather than
Bang on.
because you went and did a TAFE.
Yeah, well, I did 3 years at uni. I did I'm going to exaggerate here. I did half a year of my honours. It was like 3 weeks, and then I just went, what? This is a waste of time. And then I went to TAFE at North Sydney Film and Television School and learnt in basically 1 year all the stuff I hadn't learnt at uni. So it was much more hands-on. It was cameras, it was editing, it was, what's the script you wrote, you turned into something. At uni, the script you wrote, some person dressed in all black would mark it down in red and tell you you're shit at writing. Whereas at TAFE, they were like, oh, that's pretty good, go make that. Yeah. There's a camera, go shoot that in the car park. So,
see, during my brief stint at uni, I did. I started doing an arts degree with the view of like, that was the same thing. And then I remember sitting in a subject called Media, Culture and Society.
yeah, I did that one.
and the lecturer was drinking water from a wine glass. and then watching that, and then looking around, going, "There's 400 kids here, and there's an afternoon lecture as well. There's another 400 kids, so there's at least 800 kids doing this subject." And then I went, "I don't reckon there's 800 jobs at the end of this."
No, there's only one going at Kiss FM. Like, who's going to get that in here? Yeah.
You got to suck up to the guy who drinks water from a wine glass.
That's right. So look, I'm not anti uni. I'm very pro uni, and I want my kids to go to uni, but I'm the same as you. Go and do something worthwhile.
Yeah.
Become an engineer, or if you get the marks, obviously, or
I think the idea that it's somewhere you go to find yourself these days, it's a very expensive way to find yourself.
Absolutely. So the TAFE, if there's a way that you can learn also on the job. So most of the learning I did. So then out of TAFE and out of uni, I then got a job as a logger at Fox, and then that's where I genuinely learned.
Explain that for people who haven't worked in TV.
So a logger back then was, and I always wanted to work in sports television. Always played a lot of sport, loved sport, and so I always geared myself towards that angle. I knew somebody and got a job, nothing to do with my uni degree. A mate of mine was working there, and he slid me in as a logger. And a logger is an entrance level back then in television. And basically what it was you would watch every second of a sporting event, and you would mark it down. So let's say I did a lot of LPGA back then. So let's say Annika Sorenstam. Yep. She's on the fourth. She just drains it down the middle. Like off the tee, I'd write the time code. LPGA was normally about 2 a.m. I was getting in there. So let's say 0206, Sorenstam, long off the tee, 2 stars. So I had a starring system. So the better, I'd go up to 5 stars. Some guys were only 3.
The better looking the LPGA.
I was never that. I was all about the technical. The best golfers with the best shots would get the best stars, right? And then what happens is those sheets, they'd get photocopied and they'd get handed around. So you'd have journalists that would come over that would say, what's happened in the LPGA, Jimbo? And I'd be like, mate, you'll never guess what happened.
Annika drained one.
Annika drained one. Or Kari's on fire. Let's get a bit of Aussie in there, Kari Webb. And then they then do the story from that. Or alternatively, you'd have editors that would have to turn 3 hours of LPGA into an hour to put them into a particular time slot. So they'd come in, they'd find the 5 stars, they'd know what to cut out, what to leave in.
So that's basically so people could find the footage easily.
That's right. It's just speeding up the process. And so we were on $13 an hour. I would have been getting paid more, I think, at Macca's at that stage. So it was the minimum wage.
You didn't get to watch TV all night.
But it was, true. So there was funny things like you'd get your logging shifts and you'd see, at 2 a.m. I've got LPGA, and then there's a gap, and then I've got WWE at 5 a.m. So then you're logging.
WWE, they could have just sent you the script so you knew
what
what was going to happen.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
It's not real, mate.
Anyway, so you do WWE, and then you have another break, and then you go, the NHL. You got the NHL from 8. So, I remember vividly, I fell asleep under a desk, a rather important person's desk. And then the next day was a memo about sleeping at work. And they were all like, that was Rochford pointing me out. Nearly lost my job 100 times. But anyway, that was logging. So then you work your way up from logging. You would then try and work your way into a particular department. For me, it was the rugby union department that I worked my way into. And then you become a production assistant. So that's when you're then looking through vision. You start sitting with an editor. So you're cutting highlights, all that sort of stuff. And then you work your way up. And then that's what I did. And then found a way to get to Channel 9 to do, I worked on the footy show, and it was a whole thing about doing comedy with that production because I was doing stand-up at the time. But you talk about your resume not meaning anything or your degree not meaning anything. The reason I got a job at Channel 9 was because my brother, who was Dr. Andrew Rochford, who was doing a show called How Good Is It? No. It's Good For You? No. What's Good For You? No. It's whatever it was.
Look it up.
He was at a barbecue, and the guy that was running Wide World of Sports or whatever, a guy called Gary Burns, was at the same barbecue, and he was whinging because Matty Johns' Reg Reagan segment had gone to shit. And then my brother said, my brother does stand-up, and he's a producer, and he was like, give me his number. And then I just got a phone call out of the blue, and all it was, James, Gary Burns, if you want a job, call me back. And that was it. And so then I got a job on the Footy Show.
Was it reverse charges?
I was like, who the fuck is Gary Burns? And then I called him back, and that's so again. Literally, it was my brother at a barbecue.
That's fascinating because I'd always wondered how, because I knew your timeline. I knew you'd started as a logger. I never knew how you ended up over at the Footy Show.
Just a comment at my brother overhearing a comment at a barbecue about how Reg Reagan's gone to shit, and then. Yeah.
And so when you arrived there, what was your, like, were you immediately sort of paired with Matty?
Yeah, so they brought me in with Matty, and it was about reinventing his segments. Matty was obviously mainly in control, but we sat down and we came up with all these new characters. So there was a referee called Percy LeBlanc.
Yep.
Who we made some segments, and it was the whole idea that Percy suffered from refereitis, which was if you referee too many games, you can't switch it off. And so Percy was Hollywood Hartley era around that time. And so we shot all this stuff, and it cut up really, really well. The best thing we shot was we did a self-help group, and it was Refereitis Anonymous, and we got all these different officials in, and it was led by Bill Harrigan. And so he came in, and Bill was, hi, my name's Bill, I'm leading you today. And then we went around the room. And Bill had on his shirt, I couldn't remember what, we did an acronym. An acronym? Is that the word?
An acronym is, that would be if you made half these sketches now, they'd be anachronist.
Yeah, right, yeah. Anyway.
An acronym?
Acronym.
Yeah.
And it spelt out scrote. So it was sufferers of chronic refereitis, something. And so Bill did this whole thing and scrote written on his. Unfortunately, it never made it to air because Matty's time at 9 finished when they let him go. And so that died. And that particular segment, which is sitting somewhere.
That's funny because I remember one of the first things I ever wrote for you that got on air was when what was his name? He left. He was the commissioner of the RLC.
Beattie?
No, the one before Beattie. Beard. What was his name? I forget it.
John Grant.
John Grant. So when John Grant left, and we were putting a campaign together for you to take over as the RLC, and the acronym was a tug.
That's right.
The big thing, we want a tug.
We want a tug. Mate, classic stuff. Highbrow. Always highbrow, the stuff we did.
Remember that? That was because we got one. I remember one of the things I remember now when every now and then when I turn on Sunrise and I see Sherbo there, I remember him with I forget who he was with. Who was doing the Super Saturday at the time?
Fletch.
No, it wasn't
Gaz.
Fletch. It would have been Gaz might have been Gaz and Braith.
Or might have been Badge. Gary Belcher did a lot of it with him.
But Sherbo said, join us for a tug.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, geez, that was good. He was very good to his Sherbo.
He was a very good man.
Yeah.
Almost got him in trouble too.
A few times. Oh, when we got sued.
Yeah.
But he got out of that because he's so handsome. Yeah. And the other reason as well. So where are we up to?
Yeah,
Barney?
so
you keep going,
you're at the Footy Show.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So then Matt was gone. And so we needed to replace, he was the light entertainment. So a search began. They brought in the big man, Daryl, who was a delight to work with. Absolute champion, as he likes to say.
We were visiting friends down in Canberra recently, and I noticed on their bookshelf the big man's barbecue cookbook.
Has he got one?
Yeah.
He's an absolute champion. And so we did some segments with him, but it was young and fresh, and so we tried a couple of people. The Wolfman.
Oh yeah.
David Williams. He was very funny, but just couldn't get it to work. Timings, all that sort of stuff. I think he was playing a bit of representative football and stuff for Australia.
Wanted to concentrate on his career.
Yeah, I think he did. Well, yeah, wanted to play footy instead of doing dressed up fart jokes, which is what I used to do. And so he didn't work out. Then there was someone else. But we eventually, somebody went to Gary Burns and said, there's this winger coming through, Bo Ryan, doesn't play much at the moment, but he's very funny. So then went and met with Bo, and then myself and another guy called Stephen Quino, who shared an office with me. He was an absolute champion. We came up with Bo Knows, and it was ripped off, because no idea is original, it was ripped off from that Bo Jackson campaign in America.
Yeah.
It was the whole idea that Bo knows something. And the first one was Bo Knows Backpackers. And it just went from there. And we made, God, so many of them. Like 30 a year for 4 years I would have made.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
That's it, because I don't think people necessarily understand how much planning and how much time goes into it.
Yeah.
How long were those segments, and how long do you reckon they'd take to actually from in like scripting to
So
put it to air?
the Gary Burns rule
Yep.
was always basically anything over 4 minutes for a comedy skit is too long. And I still try to live by that if I'm doing like a tape piece, which I absolutely think.
He must love TikTok. Everything under 90 seconds.
Yeah, mate, he would. Yeah, less is more, less is more. I mean, by the time we had our show on a Friday night, do you remember I used to try and do everything below a minute.
Yeah.
Any comedy sketch below a minute, because it loses its punch, right? So
I think if we had something real, I think we get to 2 minutes absolute max if we had something that was two-part, like complicated, more than one concept. Or something.
that's right. Or sometimes we'd revisit things. So the 2 minutes we'd split, remember?
Yeah.
And we'd set it up, and then we'd do the punchline later on. So did all of those with Bo. Then I got Gary Burns, the same bloke. He left and went to Fox. And then so he, over the course of 12 months, was, helping. So he, wanted me to come over there and help. Matty Johns had done 1 year, I think, of their show, and it did okay, but they wanted something light for them.
More into the light stuff, because he started much more serious there.
Yeah.
I remember we had that great footage of him that we found when he first saw me that he did that press conference, and
That's right.
And he said, it'll be less of the silly stuff,
That's
more
right.
of the
All
analysis.
the serious analysis. Yeah. So, but then I think after 12 months, they sort of went, okay, well, let's see if we can lighten this up. So they brought me over there, and then I had to come up with something, and I just started making stuff. I was working for stuff on the A-League, and I was sort of, what's the old thing, a minister without portfolio. And so I just had to start making stuff, and I tried to make this segment with, famously, there was a game between Australia, the Kangaroos, and Russia at the World Cup in, do you remember what year it was? Early 2000, might have even been 2000 maybe. And Australia won 104-4. And I thought, let's do a segment and have a laugh about that. Because they do these dramatic, the NFL films do it the best.
Yeah.
And that's what I was taking the piss out of. This dramatic music and how close it was and everything. But what if you do it for a full blowout? So we did it. And then I realised Hindy was in it, Nathan Hindmarsh. And he just signed with Fox. And I knew Hindy through stuff at Nine. So rang Hindy, said, come in, I want you to do these dramatic. They're now the 30 for 30 things, right?
Yeah.
But it was a touch before that, the black and white and looking down the barrel and really earnest and talk about this game. And then I also knew Fletch from Nine, because he used to do the sports bet stuff at Nine. So I got Fletch in to do the same thing, and a couple of other guys. But what happened was Fletch was in doing it, and Hindy came in while we were filming. And I think the first thing, and again, exaggerating, but I think the first thing that Hindy said to him was like, here he is, the Eastern Suburbs wanker. Something like that, right? And then the two of them just started arguing. The banter was brilliant, right? That whole concept, East versus West, the privilege versus, the guy, what would you call him? The trade.
knockabout.
The knockabout. That's right. You've got boys, I've got girls. And so straight away I went, holy shit, there's something here. So then I put together Fletch and Hindy. And the first thing we did was just a bit of a hidden camera thing, just to see if it worked. It's okay. But then we did this thing, the Shervo Shield, which was the two of them racing. Parramatta was playing the Roosters, I'm pretty sure, and we got the two of them to race at half time, which was amazing. Of an NRL game, they wouldn't let you do it now. We've kind of killed that off. And unless they're doing it, I haven't watched in a long time.
No,
I don't know what they're doing now.
I don't think that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think they. It's a little bit more controlled game day now than probably it was then.
I think so. And so they raced, and then that became a whole storyline. We made this whole story around it, and then they raced Shervo, And I mean, the concepts were just so ridiculous. So Shervo, the whole idea was the boys refused to race Shervo running, but they would swim against him. So we had them all dressed in swimmers, and they went over to the pool next to the SFS on the night that the Roosters were playing the Knights, I think. And as they go to dive in the pool, so Shervo's complained because Fletcher's feet are too big, so he wants flippers. So I mean, I'm probably getting this all wrong. It's on YouTube. And so then Rise are about to jump in. Somebody comes and tells us the pool's closed. Are you joking? Get out of the pool. So then I'm like, oh, well, what do we do now? Anyway, cut to the three of them then race in the middle at halftime of the game, and Shervo is in his full speed suit from the Commonwealth Games or the Olympics in flippers.
Oh,
And he races the two guys. He beats them, Shervo. I mean, just absolute champion, and great sense of humour. So that then kind of catapulted it, and then it just went from there. And then I did that for 3 years or 4 years or whatever it was, and then got.
speaking of what you wouldn't be allowed to do now, Segway jousting.
Yeah, so because we like to invent sports, and so we came up with Segway jousting, and it was because I'd segwayed around Europe.
Yes, you mentioned that a few times. If there's a guy who can segue over cobblestones.
So when you're 26, 27, and you're single and you go and you do your journey of discovery over there.
And this would have been, when you were 26, 27, because we're the same age, that would have been peak
Segway time. Oh, Segways burst onto the scene. Like, people don't actually get it. A lot of people were trading in cars for Segway. And they were talking about, forget the bicycle lane, Segway lanes.
Segways.
They were massive.
And Segway tours were common in most major cities.
Yeah, and so I found myself going around Europe, and the first thing I would do when I'd get to a city is I'd book in a Segway tour. So I segued. Oh, geez, I did Lisbon, I did Rome. Oh, you got to Segway Rome.
Oh,
Where else did I do? Madrid, Barcelona,
Prague.
Prague. I did Czech Republic. I also did. I went into Hungary, segued through. Is it Bratislava?
Oh,
Is that Hungary or is that the other way? Is that Slovakia? I think Slovakia is Bratislava.
yeah, my geography.
Wonderful Segway tour. But anyway, I'm going to say 20 cities I segued through. And I made a friend, a Canadian guy called Tuna. And he and I struck up a friendship over Segways. And we segued for a summer. And I still talk to Tuna.
Do you?
Yeah, if you get something on your phone about Segways, I'll send it to him. And
You know the algorithm.
Yeah.
All segues all the time.
Yeah, I mean, we're chatting about it today. Hopefully, I get some stuff. And so then, based on my love of segways and my love of jousting, we made Segway jousting. I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere if you want to look it up. And it got pretty violent.
It didn't just get violent because we did. I think you and I did a piece on it in one of our later
Behind the scenes.
Yeah. It got more than violent. It got drunk.
Yeah, so we did it one year, it went really well, and then they asked us to come up the next year. So every year Parramatta plays games in Darwin, the Eels, and we did halftime entertainment one year, we did the Segway jousting, and a lot of people post-match said that the Segway jousting was far more interesting than the game, than rugby league. And so Parramatta, in all their wisdom, wanted to get behind this new sport because they thought, looking ahead, obviously the Olympics, it tends to take about 8 years to get into one, but obviously they're thinking, next 8 years this could be an Olympic sport.
Exhibition
to start with.
At least.
And so then they said, come up the next year. They actually invited us up, and because you know how complacent you get when stuff's going well. Oh, I know better than anybody. We sat at the Darwin Sailing Club, the story, and had 12, under exaggerating, schooners in the sun. Are they pints in Darwin?
Right, because those, and one of the things I think people don't necessarily appreciate about those guys is they're both giant humans.
Yes.
And they've both got, and it's an athlete thing where they've got a switch where the competitive juices change. I remember what you said to me very wisely one day when we were doing the rugby league show. We had those two on for something, and then it was when Bozza was on, and so we had Bozza and Fletch, And then for the last challenge, we weren't going to make Bozza do the challenge, so he was allowed to get Fletch in. It was like a gladiator.
Oh, so Hindy came in, didn't he?
Yeah, I think because Bozza had been on gladiators or something.
Yes, he had, yeah.
So
some just loose link that we decided was important.
So this big inflatable thing, and they were going to do it. And then you said to me right before we started shooting it, just be aware these two are going to turn on us at some stage. And
which is what they used to pick on us. They used to flog us. Well, they used to bash me. Not in a fun way. I'm saying that. Like it was always. But
yeah, it was like, it's like being manhandled by a gorilla. And the footage of you guys you trying to get them to go out in the field.
They dragged me, didn't they? Didn't they grab me and they dragged me? Yeah, because I was trying to break them up and then I was trying to stop the fight and then it was when I was trying to get them ready.
In the change rooms beforehand, and you just realise how much, like, because you're not a small guy, but you realise how much smaller you are than those guys.
Well, I reckon they'd each have 40 kilos on me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm trying to get them dressed into this medieval knights gear, and they, fuck off, James. And then they just started. I think they were dragging me around the room.
Some of the best footage I've seen. It looked terrifying, but So the Fletch and Hindy obviously started going well, and then when did not the NRL news start?
So I did a segment on the rugby union show, Cup Runneth Over, which you were doing
warm up for you,
which was for the World Cup, which is a great show. Sean Maloney and Andrew Mertens, great show back in the day, and so. So not the NRL news. First of all, was just my voice, if you remember, and that was because Maddie loved not the 9 o'clock news, which was an old comedy series, and he wanted to do a piss take news of the week, and I was doing comedy at that time, and so he asked me to write it for him, and I wrote the first one, and I went down with Warren Smith to voice it. Maddie wanted Warren to voice it, and read it, and in his infinite wisdom went, I can't read this. So I had done a dummy voice, and then Maddie came in to see it, and I was like, didn't want to voice it, and he was like, let me hear it. He went, it's awesome. We'll play it with your voice. So I did a season where I just did the voiceover, and then the main producer on the rugby one, which was Paul Slater, he loved that segment, but he loved John Oliver. So he wanted me to present it live. I've probably got all my timelines wrong here. I don't remember.
I think that's...
Is that right?
That's right.
And then so I came on and presented it on that show. And then
you were always wearing something weird.
Dumb. It got weirder and weirder each week. And
I think there was a fox.
There was a
fox like shawl.
Yeah, and then one episode
because it started just like tweed jacket style.
Yeah, and then I've tried to make it more and more ridiculous. And so then I think Maddie had or maybe Andy O'Brien, the producer of Maddie's show at the time, he'd maybe seen that, and then they decided I'd present it live. And then it just went from there, and not the NRL news went well. And then off the back of that, then I got the show, which was the Professor's Second Year Syndrome. And then that went well, and then I did the Professor's Farewell Tour. And then off the back of that, we got the cricket show, which then you and I had our cricket show, The Night Watchman. That did very well. And then Professor's Late Hit, which again, it all just kept growing and growing and growing. Then a second season of The Night Watchman. And then Fox had lined up for us to do an AFL version of our rugby league show. So the idea was in a year, we would do the NRL show and the footy show on the same night. They'd go out in the two networks, Fox Footy and Fox League. Both of us like our AFL.
Yep. And
our rugby league, and then do the cricket in the off season, and then COVID hit. We were put on hold. Told we were coming back, and then they just very slowly put a bullet in us.
Yeah. That was one of my favourite things about that, because they put a lot of effort into getting us down into Melbourne. So we were down in doing all the so for all the Fox League has their promo shoots. So for all those interstitials, I suppose, they're coming in and out of ads where you got the hero shots of the commentators.
Yeah, that's right.
And that sort of stuff. So we were in the league ones and we were in the AFL ones. They put us down. So in that big hero shot of the whole team for that whole year, and I think even into the next year, there was just two guys in
Just
gold
standing there. We
suits.
never did a show for him. Yeah. So anyway, it was the highest rating show on the network.
Yeah.
If not the highest, definitely second. But I'm going to say both of them were the highest rating. And put a bullet in it, and then no questions asked.
Yeah.
That's how it works, mate. That's how TV works.
COVID. That
My
with
dad's
that-
a pharmacist. That's my problem.
Yeah, well, mate, if he got onto the vaccines quicker, maybe we could have.
Yeah.
When I think back though, that was like, because people often, like, when they ask about that show, they always ask, "Well, geez, it looked like you were having a lot of fun," and it was a lot of fun. But I was explaining this to someone the other day. Those days, those Sundays, because you and I do the Friday night show,
Yeah.
and then we do not the NRL news on Sunday nights as well. And especially one of the tricks we had was if something didn't really work in front of the audience
On the Friday.
we'd rewrite it a bit for the Sunday.
Yeah, and you'd cut it out of the show and rework
Or the best
it.
was when it did work, but we were over time and we'd cut it out of the show and go, "You beauty, we've got something. We've got a starter for Sunday."
Yeah.
But
I mean, the output that we were doing for the size of our crew, and it was basically you and I writing, and then we got Sam Taunton did some for us.
Yep.
And he was good. And then Nick Ratto was amazing.
Yeah.
So Kiwi comedian, look him up. He's unbelievable. And so it made it easier. But, we'd go meet with people that had worked on other comedy shows, and they'd ask, "How many writers have you got?" And we'd be like, there's just the three of us.
yeah, you're looking at us.
Yeah. And then Greg Ordelin, our original producer, was a very good comedy writer as well. He'd never admit it.
No. And
Because he likes to play the miserable bastard, but he's very, very funny.
very funny and very good judge of
Yes.
the joke too.
Yeah.
Like he was a real good barometer. Like we knew if we could get him going to the point where he'd take his glasses off,
dude. Wipe his tears.
his tears.
Yeah.
That was mostly stuff we couldn't put to air about certain
It was good gear.
people using the bathroom, but that was good times.
Yeah.
But that was the output. In
Yeah.
terms
Well,
of,
we got flogged. Like we'd get to the end of the season and we would just be ruined.
oh, mate, I remember those. There was a couple of Sundays because and I was just chatting to this about with Marty, who's here in this office, who he's talking about how my contention is I think the rugby league season is just a little too long, and he's like, "No, we want more games," but there was always that period post Origin, before the run into the finals, where it's just the games don't mean as much. The eight's almost set, like it's all sort of
Your dead rubbers start creeping in.
yeah,
And
it's just sort of coasting. So it dips. And I remember in that point too, like the energy of the guys, like when we do Sunday nights.
they just
They were
wouldn't care.
tired. They were getting overworked. So no one was enthusiastic. And I remember there was a couple of Sundays where we'd be looking at each other because we'd go in Sunday, we'd meet for breakfast, and then we'd have all Sunday to write and shoot if we needed to, find, cut, go put it all through sound, like everything. And I remember there was one day in particular where you and I were struggling pretty hard, and I remember you looking at me going, "All right, that's 1 p.m. and we have no jokes."
Yeah, I know. We'd have to turn jokes around and anyway.
I was telling that though occasionally we did get the gift. I remember there was one where we were about a half a joke short. Do you remember the Mason Cox joke?
Yeah, that was a good one.
So we were just sitting in our office and we were half a joke short, and Ben Hogarth, who now produces Fletcher 90, had come in and he turned on the TV in our office, he turned the AFL on. And Mason Cox, big 7-footer, plays for Collingwood, was having evidently a dominant game. And the commentator said the beautiful line of, "And already you can see the impact of the Demons playing differently because of the threat of Cox in the air."
Because it is a genuine threat.
Yeah.
Because we had it mapped out to the point where we knew we needed 3.5 jokes.
Yes.
And we knew the duration and the beats of those 3.5 jokes. And you and I would basically fill out those 3.5 jokes for that 5-minute segment on the Sunday. God, we had it down to a formula, didn't we?
Yeah.
And it worked well. But I have to say, I think as much as we didn't really choose our time to exit, I genuinely think it was the right time to exit.
That I think about that sometimes too, is in terms of, because we used to have the conversation at the end of every sort of season. Like I that first year, of second year syndrome, I started doing warm up, and then I just started doing more and more writing, because I had that thing where I'd send you jokes, like I'd text you a joke idea or an idea, and then eventually you said, you come to the writing meeting, and then eventually it was like, okay, we'll pay you more to do warm up, and we'll pay you to come in a day a week or 2 days a week or whatever it was. And I remember that at the end of each year, it'd be that thing, okay, how do we keep evolving the show?
Yeah. Yeah, and we sort of had run out of ideas, hadn't we? Yeah. But I guess I reckon now, because we've had a bit of time off, if we came back and, I don't know.
No, I think now, but yeah, I mean, it's the distance and time. I think if we were still doing it, it'd be a different show again, because you just...
Do you look fondly back at that?
Yeah, I do. In like, I really enjoy. I learned that was, especially for me, because having done no TV, the steepest learning curve of now, and now even just doing this sort of stuff, cutting, like, because I do this whole thing myself, but I don't
I've noticed.
but I've realised I don't actually need anyone else to do it, because I can.
No.
I've learnt how to put all that together, cut and mess around with the audio and that sort of stuff, which is all stuff I learnt in there.
Yeah,
and even just how to set up a shot, frame a shot, all that sort of stuff. And there's people watching this on YouTube going, "Oh, that's your framing, is it?" But
what's a headroom? What's the deal there? Yeah, we did learn a lot. You had to learn quickly because there just wasn't the staffing. So mate, I can remember I'd be about to host the show in half an hour, and I'd still be sitting cutting the jokes that were about to go on it.
And for a couple of those Sunday night. Remember when we were early in the Sunday, when we were doing Sunday nights, we at the start we were on early in the show, and then eventually got pushed back. But there was a couple when we were still early in the show where we'd have to go down and go, "Hey,
we're still cutting it.
It's not through editing. It's not through sound yet."
Yeah,
we never not made it to air though.
No, that's true. And we did. How many jokes did we do? And what percentage hit?
Oh, not probably only low 90s. I remember actually, I was talking to someone about this recently. That feeling of when auto cue, when you or I'd riff and the auto cue operator
would shit their pants. Whoa, it's not written there. What's got? Yeah.
The time, and because we'd often leave and then we'd talk on the phone on the way home, and we'd be like, "Oh man, that felt like 20 minutes." And then I'd get a call from you the next morning or later that night just going, "Hey, I watched it back. You barely noticed it." Because it felt like, when in those moments, dead air feels like forever.
Yeah.
Especially live TV. Because that was interesting too, because you're very conscious it's going out live, but you've also got 60 odd people sitting there.
Well, what about when we shifted and we didn't have an audience and we had to make the 4 blokes on the couch laugh?
Oh.
And then we worked out the easiest way to make them laugh is to make it about them.
Yeah.
And then we got told we're not allowed to do any more jokes about them.
Well, that's the other thing. I look back fondly, especially at the early days, is that we had a lot of freedom early. Like, in terms of, no one really told us what we could or couldn't joke about.
Oh, that changed.
Occasionally, we'd get a, "Hey, lay off that from now on." But it was usually after the fact. There was a couple of times. There was one time in particular, I can remember we were halfway through shooting something and we got we got told we can't do that. But for the most part, and then towards the end, that's what I mean. Like the fond part of it, was when we had that real freedom to take big swings and be creative with it. That I think towards the end, a lot of the rules made it became much. It was much impossible. Harder.
Yeah.
So now you got multiple podcasts.
Yeah. So I'm doing what a lot of people have done, which is you get burnt by the TV industry, and so you make it yourself. And we are now I hate this term, but the media landscape is shifting where you can own your own content. So the whole idea now is rather than signing a bit of paper that says your IP belongs to a network, you can now own your own IP. And if you have the skills, which we learned at Fox, you can just make it yourself. So the two shows that I'm making we make them as TV shows, but they go out as podcasts. It's more like a web series.
But that's, I think nowadays that's how most podcasts are done. It's like the biggest podcasts in the world are, they're either, you can listen to them audio, but there's also, everyone's got them YouTube and they're more formatted like your old traditional talk show, like a basic talk show.
Yeah. And because if you go on YouTube, there is no geo-blocking unless you're using content that is owned by, let's say, a governing body. But if it is literally you and you're sitting on a couch and you're talking about someone or something, you open up your audience to 7 billion people in theory. Obviously, it's not that many. But the best example I use is, so I've now gone back to rugby union. I love union, I love league, I love AFL, love it all, right? So I've gone back and I'm currently making this show Kick-Ons and Kick-Offs with 3 ex-Wallabies. So Drew Mitchell, Adam Ashley Cooper, and Matt Giddo. 3 guys, very good senses of humour, very articulate.
All from an era when the Wallabies were a world force.
That's right. All played, I think it's like 300 games between them, played for years and years and years. And so why was I talking?
So we're just talking about like the own your own.
Own your own. Right. So right now the 4 of us, plus 2 other guys, we own everything we make. So if we go and we talk to a company and get a sponsorship, every cent is ours. Whereas that doesn't happen when you're working for a network. That goes back into the pool and the people up the top get very rich and the rest of the company, no. So, here's my example. So when I was doing my league show, if you think about it, right, say there's 5.5 million NRL fans in the country. 30% of the population has Fox.
Yep.
That was back then. I don't know what it is now. So you've got 30% of 5.5 million people that might watch your show. In terms of YouTube and rugby union, there is 500 million rugby union fans worldwide, right? Because it's everywhere. It's a growing sport in a lot of regions. As much as it's not doing great here, there's parts of the world where it's just exploding. So by going on YouTube and not putting in anything that's going to geo-block you, you can ideally open yourself up to 500 million fans as opposed to 1.5 million fans. So then you get them watching. There's so many different revenue streams. So YouTube, views you can monetize, so you make money through that. Podcast listens you can monetize, but then sponsorship dollars, then you can do merch, then you can do live shows and all of this stuff. And at the end of the day, the IP is ours. And so you sleep soundly knowing that somebody else doesn't own your thoughts. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, you're still married, so someone does. But
yeah, good point. Yeah. And then so we're doing that one, and then the cricket one, which is called Club Prairie Fire.
Which is an even bigger global.
That's right. So then you're looking at, I think that it's like 2 billion cricket fans, they reckon.
That's crazy.
Toss it up, right? So you can then open up your audience to say 2 billion people. And then we're not there yet. But if you can then get that many people putting eyeballs on your product, then, that's how you make it. So that's Adam Gilchrist and Michael Vaughan, who, now own a percentage of that company. And so you own what you're making. That's the days of having to rely on a network to make content, and we're making it right now, are dead. So, and there's athletes and comedians all around the world that have suddenly realized, hold on, I don't need to appear on that network. I don't need to appear on that radio station. I will just make it myself. And then your followers, the people that like you, will watch it. And then every cent you make goes to you.
Which is, I suppose that's the big change is the distribution. The distribution used to be the hard part because you used to have to own like hardware to broadcast.
Satellites.
And you had to own basically a section of the bandwidth of the broadcasting. But whereas now, with YouTube or whatever, you can upload it and away you go. And
well, it's funny. So our friend Greg Ortolan, who used to produce us, he was the one that tipped me into doing this, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you and I post Fox, we thought, our show was shit hot. Surely another network will pick it up. We made pilots. We went and spoke to every network, and nothing. So I was pretty down on that. Couldn't really get a gig anywhere. And so Greg, one day I went and had a coffee with him, and he was like, "What are you doing, man? The world is changing. You just got it. You know how to do it. Just do it, and you put it on here, and ultimately your outcome is going to be better. It'll take a little bit of time, but your outcome is going to be better than you going and signing a little bit of paper for a network. So good on you, Greg. You won't watch this.
No.
No, you'll be watching maths.
Yeah, which is on a network. So practice what you preach, Greg.
Yeah, that's right. So if you are, a young, content maker or producer, or don't stop worrying about applying for jobs at networks. Just make it yourself.
Well, the irony being too now is a lot of those traditional media, they look for people who are already creating stuff, who have already got themselves an
It's now
audience.
being reverse engineered.
Yeah. So, yeah, interesting times to live through the end of broadcast TV, I suppose. I mean, maybe it'll come back, maybe it won't, but...
Well, the flagship program was always the news, but who doesn't know what's happening in the world until 6 p.m. now?
Me. I ignore it until Peter Overton tells me.
Yeah, other than you. Do you know what I mean? Or, live sport, all these streaming platforms are now starting to buy up all the live sport.
Yeah, where do you see that? Because you've been around sport a long time. Where do you see that going? Because live sport is obviously, it's the last thing that, with streaming, the last thing you need to sit down and watch at a time. Which is why I think broadcast television is so important.
Here's my opinion on it.
Yep.
Right? These athletes, and we know a lot of athletes, we know current athletes, we know ex-athletes, and they go to hell and back, like physically and mentally. Like, it's not a lifestyle you'd push your kids into because it's so difficult, right? And a lot of them come out the other side and they suffer. They suffer joint issues, or their mental health, or there's all this stuff around CTE and everything now. So whatever these people can do to get the most amount of money when they're playing, where the money doesn't go to the network, or doesn't go to the CEOs, or the people that aren't actually competing. So I think personally, and it's probably not an opinion people like, it should just go to the highest bidder. So if Amazon come in tomorrow and say, look, we have $50 billion for the NRL, I think, and we will give this to the players. And what the players are going to get is more, or the coaches and the players and the staff, is way more than what they're getting when the network owns it. I think, hooray for Amazon, and that's how it should work.
Wow. This is the thing, like, you want to give the money to the players. I knew there's a term called Red Rochford. I had no idea it meant you're a bloody commie.
Oh, you're right. You're dead right.
I think there's validity to that.
Don't you reckon? If you've got the most cash, I don't understand. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think there should be I don't mind the old anti-siphoning laws for games of national significance need to be on a free platform. That doesn't mean it needs to be on broadcast TV. That could be, in front of a paywall on a streaming service.
Exactly. So, or simulcast or whatever it is. But yeah, as long as it's free, then and let's say, I don't know, Amazon buys all the Australian cricket matches, right? And so then they say, okay, well, all the test matches and all the ODIs that are local, which is what happens on local free-to-air or whatever it is, they're, free and in front of the paywall, but everything else we're going to put behind the paywall. I'm cool with that, man. As long as the cricketers are seeing the rewards for their hard work. Jeez, this took a turn, this podcast, didn't it?
We are almost at time because we're going to go get lunch. But before we go, a couple of things. At the end, I'll get you to plug the podcast again, tell people where they can find everything you're doing. But people always want to know when they ask me, so I'll ask you these things. You've dealt with a lot of athletes over your time, worked with a lot of different athletes, a lot of different people. One, who's the person you met, like, that you were like most in awe of, or had the most den thing? And
I reckon we've got the same answer on that.
lunatic.
I reckon we've got the same answer on where like the most amazing. Can I do two?
Yeah.
So Shane Warne. So when we did stuff with Warnie, and they talk about his charisma and his aura and everything, but I got to work with Warnie a fair bit. I was his producer on his show at Channel 9, and then we got to work with him with our show and at Fox. And so his two things was he amazing sense of humor, right? Like funny guy, would crack up a room, but also when he would come into a room, he would make you feel like he cared. Like we've met so many athletes that just don't give a fuck about you.
It was funny with him was one of the things I remember that first time we met him, and usually we'd have much more prep time with a guest before. But part of the thing was when the guest came in, you and I would, and you were much better at it than I was part of it was trying to make them comfortable, make them feel. But when we were sitting, he's literally sitting in the makeup chair like 5 minutes before we were about to go out. And he was the one, I think, making us more calm.
He was. Do you remember? Because was that the year when he came in and went, it was just after Christmas.
Yeah.
And he was like, what'd you get up to for Christmas, boys? And I was like, I had it with my family. Oh, yeah? Who's in your family? I was like, there's my brother and 3 sisters. Oh, yeah, were they all there? Yeah. And have they got kids? Yeah, everybody's got...
He's sitting in the makeup chair, getting makeup on, and we're there with rundowns trying to show, we'll be fine, boys.
Yeah. So him, and then Luke Longley was the other one who I got to meet a couple of years back, who is just... Like he's a mountain of a man physically, but he's a mountain of a man mentally. Like just has a certain aura. You know, when we met Jason Gillespie was a bit the same.
Yeah.
Where it's this
very still
calmness and they're so confident in who they are as a person, and they know themselves so well, and so generous with their time. And so Luke was amazing. I think Is that a good answer?
That's a great answer.
Thank you, mate.
Okay, now, sneaky funniest. Who's the athlete you've dealt with?
Currently, Matt Giddo
Yeah?
is very funny. Like you would never know that. In all the years that he played and all the interviews he ever did, you just wouldn't know. Like, very, very funny guy. So dry, which I know it's a real Australian thing.
Yeah.
But just the driest sense of humour. On the podcast the other day, he's playing for San Diego Legion at the moment. I said to him,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so he's come out of retirement at 41. He's playing in the MLR for San Diego. Him and Ma Nonu. So he's the
Major League Rugby. They've got Major League Rugby.
Yeah, so rugby in America is quite big in the college system, and then it falls away. It's carbon copy of the MLS, the soccer, but the MLS made that brilliant decision of getting Beckham across.
Yeah.
So there's every chance if back in the day, if the MLR had got Dan Carter or Johnny Wilkinson or Richie McCaw or someone at the right time, it might have done the same thing, right? But they've got the World Cup in 8 years. So there's a bit of a push for rugby union in America at the moment.
Nice.
And so Matt Giddo at 41 has gone across to play for the San Diego Legion with Ma Nonu, which is pretty amazing. And so I said to him on the podcast, I said, and where can the guys watch you play for the Legion? And he goes, oh, mate, I'll just log into Instagram Live and I'll just wear my phone in my pocket while I'm playing. I was like, oh, okay, just log into my Facebook, my Instagram. Anyway.
He's always, get those followers up. Good thinking.
Yeah, he's hilarious. Beaver Menzies always used to crack me up.
Beaver Menzies was, and you flagged it with me before, like I'd really worked with him, was the funniest when you weren't filming.
Oh, and when the cameras aren't there, oh my God, he just cracks you up.
And then as soon as you turn a camera on, he just slow down.
And so remember we used to have to pretend that the cameras weren't on when we'd start. And then he'd do something really funny and he'd be like, oh, well, the camera's recording. Well, they're recording. And you're like, no, Beaver, we haven't started yet. So, yeah, probably Beaver and Gitz. I mean, Drew Mitchell's very funny as well. Oh, no, Michael Vaughan. Michael Vaughan is, he is a tortured comedian. Like, just so funny. And Gilly's very funny as well, but Vaughnie is just next level. Like, he should be hosting a QI or something like that. I know he was captain of England or some shit, but his comedy is just, very, very funny guy.
Vaughnie was another one that was fun.
Oh, brilliant with us. Yeah.
And thing I remember most about the Gilly episode was Gilly asked if he could come in early because he wanted to see how we prepared. And I remember there was a moment where you, me, and Nick are all sitting on our laptops punching out script, and Gilly's just sort of in the corner of the room, just sort of watching us.
But remember David Warner did the same
Yeah,
thing.
Dave Warner did the same
He came in like an hour early just to. I just want to see what you guys, how you do it. So we were just sitting there.
It's a lot less
chatting
fun to
Dave.
watch us.
Yeah, as opposed to what he does when
Yeah.
he's batting. Yeah. Yeah, strange times.
Oh, mate, we do need to go get lunch. Plug, where can people find everything? Professor James Rochford.
So the two shows are Coco, Kickoffs and Kick-Ons, which is the rugby union one. And it's Coco Show, so that's on YouTube, Spotify, and all that, Instagram, everything at Kick-Offs and Kick-Ons. And then the other one is Club Prairie Fire, so that's the cricket one. So that's the same thing, YouTube, Insta, X, all that stuff at Club Prairie Fire. There's a sneaky I in the word prairie. Spell prairie for me.
Praierie.
Got it. That first I. A lot of people don't realise it's there. So
Yes, make it through the second round of the spelling bee.
yeah, well done. Club Prairie Fire. So catch me on those two. Like and subscribe.
And what about your Instagram?
I'm at Prof J Roch.
So, and they can find everything for you through that.
That's
pretty much,
right.
too.
Yeah, if you go to at Prof J Roch, then you'll find me.
Beautiful.
And what about you? Where do we find you?
I'm at Andrew Barnett Comedy on Instagram, TikTok. I'm ticking and talking.
You've done some stuff lately that's cracked me up. What was the one the other day? It was a photograph of Pink, and you said, "I'm loving the new Gladiators." That got me. That
Thank you,
tickled me.
mate.
Yeah,
All right, mate. Let's go have lunch.